Hey guys, Wayback Rewind here. In 2009, Canon introduced their last line of Mini-DV camcorders, including the High-Definition HV40. This was the last hurrah for any tape-based camcorders, and it was kind of a throwback to an earlier time. I've been looking for one of these for a while. Finally got one, and we're going to check it out. Coming up next, here on Wayback Rewind. So in the year 2009, most manufacturers had already gone to tapeless. This is my Panasonic HDC HS300. This is the actual camera that I bought in 2009. It's tapeless, it records to a hard drive, and also records to an SD card, which is the current state of the art, making this one of the first modern cameras. Now, in 2009, Canon also had tapeless cameras, but they went back to the well one last time with a tape-based Canon HDV 40. This was the fourth generation of their HDV cameras. They had an HV10, 20, 30, and 40. They were all very similar. They were all based on the HDV standard, in which the HDV standard allowed you to record high-definition video on a standard DV tape. Well, they managed to squeeze high-definition video onto the same 25 megabits per second as the standard definition Mini-DV, but using the MPEG-2 versus the Mini-DV codec. Now, there are some other compromises. This is not full HD. It's 1440 by 1080 versus the full HD of 1920 by 1080. So it reduced the resolution somewhat, but 25 megabits is a very healthy amount of data, so it has a very good picture. But for those people that were just hard over wanting tape, Canon provided it in 2009. One of the last, if not the last, HDV camcorders. Now, it also has an SD card slot, but there's several compromises here. Number one, it uses the Mini SD, which is now a deprecated standard. They don't make these anymore. Very few cameras use the Mini SD. I had my first smartphone use this, but it can be put into an adapter and put into a regular SD slot, but the smaller form factor allows it to be used here. The micro SD would become far more common, and this can only record stills, 3 megapixel stills, which even in 2009 was not that great. This camera has a 10.6 megapixel still. So this was really an old-fashioned, backwards and clunky camera, even for 2009. There were far better cameras. Now the difference is price. I paid over $1,200 for this one. Retail on this at the time was about $699, so it was about half price compared to that. So tape If you could put up with tape, tape would be cheaper for you. Now it does have a flash, which is a nice thing. Camcorders of this era had flashes. Flashes tend to have disappeared on camcorders. I guess they got sensitive enough that they didn't really need it. It also has a video light here, and it has, these are the infrared focusing sensors. Now, it also has regular USB port here. The USB port can only be used to transfer stills. It cannot be used to transfer full resolution video. So there's drawback there. But one nice thing, it's kind of rare on any camcorder, it has a full-size HDMI port. It also has the IEEE 1394, also known as a Firewire port. In 2009, a lot of people were struggling with the AVC HD in the new formats. AVC HD was a new thing. It was a problem back then. That's no issue today. But back then, if people still had a Firewire port and they wanted to use Firewire, this is the camera had it. The newer cameras like this one did not have Firewire. And finally, in terms of ports, this has a microphone jack and a headphone jack and a composite video out. So this is a very port-rich camera, especially that full-size HDMI. And I'll demonstrate that later. But having a full-size HDMI in a camera this compact was a very nice thing. So in the open, I showed this along with the Canon ZR960. This is another camera from Canon that was produced in 2009. It's also a tape-based camcorder, but it's standard definition. This camera is another throwback to an earlier time. But the nice thing is they use the same battery. This battery on here is actually the one that came with this HV40. This battery here is actually the one that I had for this 960. The battery sits in this deeply recessed pocket. I feel like somebody was copying off Panasonic. They have a very similar kind of a setup here. The battery sits in a deeply recessed pocket. Not sure what that's all about. It would be far more common to make the camera smaller and just have the battery sit external. The nice thing about these two cameras using the same battery is I could get away with using the same charger, but unfortunately they do not use the same charger. This one has a proprietary plug on it, which is kind of weird. This one uses a barrel connector. Did not come with a charger, but I bought this on Amazon. It was delivered in a day. So I was able to plug this in. You can see it's charging. But I also have an aftermarket charger that I can charge the battery externally. But I got lucky and this camera actually works. It does have one flaw. This camera has a color viewfinder, but unfortunately it appears to have been dropped at some point. I can see a minor crack here. And the diopter adjustment, it just kind of flops around here. I don't know if you can see that. But other than that, this works perfectly. The tape loads perfectly. It plays. Rewinds, fast forwards. But it does record perfectly. You can see it's recording right now. It's recording. I can go to playback. Unfortunately, it's not a touchscreen. One thing similar to the ZR960, they kind of cheaped out and didn't put a touchscreen on it. You can see it's recording right now. It's recording. You can see it's recording right now. It's recording. So the lack of a touchscreen, you're required to use this circular deal here. Get to the menu from here. It's got kind of an old school menu. One of the questions I get asked all the time is there a wide angle lens for this camera? And of course the answer is always yes. and I indicated that somebody was copying off somebody. I don't know if it was Panasonic on Canon or vice versa. These two cameras have the same size diameter lens. The wide-angle lens I bought for the Panasonic also fits on the Canon. So we have a 0.43x wide-angle lens. I will demonstrate this, take it out and show you how that wide-angle lens improves its point of view. For a camcorder, wide-angle is always better. They have massive telephoto lenses, obviously, but when you're shooting, especially indoors, or if you're a skateboarder and you need to get that wide-angle view, this wide-angle lens comes in handy. Similar to how I built up the Panasonic, there's a door that opens here. Again, somebody was copying somebody, maybe. The Panasonic has a similar door that opens, and similarly, I can install this handle. Now I have a wide-angle camera with a top handle, and I can add all sorts of other accessories like lights, microphones, whatever, monitors. I have a light here I can put up here into that cold shoe. Or I hinted that the full-size HDMI could come in handy. I got my full-size monitor here. All I have to do is plug it into this full-size port down here. For some reason that I can't quite fathom, every single time I have to turn the HDMI on, it doesn't automatically remember that I turned it on. As you can see now, this HDMI monitor is now showing the output of the camera, and it works in parallel with the screen, which is a nice feature. A lot of these you get one or the other. You can turn this display off fairly easily, but this is turned on in the menu as I just turned it on. I go to record mode. I've got the full display here showing on the monitor. If I'm walking around with this camera in wide angle mode, I've got it plugged in now, but of course it's fully portable. I now have a widescreen monitor with a top handle and a wide angle lens, and I will demonstrate this to you and show you what it looks like out in the field.
So for sample footage, I took this camera to downtown Houston, Texas. I used the top handle and the wide-angle lens for everything. For the most part, you can shoot with the wide-angle lens and just leave it on, and you still have plenty of telephoto if you need it. When I do these sample footage, I generally just put it in full auto and just get whatever I can get. That gives you the best example of how the camera can perform. Of course, you can always put it in manual and take over and get better footage, but this is the bare minimum. It wasn't very windy this day, so you're not hearing a lot of wind noise. If it were a windy day, you would absolutely need an external mic and a dead cat or something to kill the wind noise, but there was very little wind noise this day. The Houston City Hall is very unimpressive in a city full of glass skyscrapers, but I guess it's of some historical value because they've not replaced it after all these years. As you can see, the camera is handling the bright blue sky very well and the late afternoon sun with the deep shadows. Here you can see storm damage left over. Many windows were blown out of the old Enron. Not sure what it's called. It's something Louisiana, but the old Enron tower suffered heavy damage in one of the storms from recent. So here you can see me using the top handle to get a low angle. I didn't use the monitor just because it was a little bulky. But as you can see, the wide angle doesn't really prevent you from getting the wide shot and zooming in. If you found this helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button, and thank you for watching.